Hello, it has been a hot minute, but welcome to a new Love Bomb chat. I am joined by the lovely Evie, and I think it's episode 16, possibly, which
Yes.
feels kind of crazy to me that I've already had 16 of these because I feel like I just asked Ben to be on it for the first time, and that was a year ago, I want to
Yeah.
say, or like getting really close to a year ago already. So time is flying, but how are you, Evie?
I am good. I managed to finish a book, literally today, so I don't have to carry it over into September. Not that
Nice.
that's a big deal, but I'm like, "Dang, I feel accomplished." So,
Mhm. I have to finish a book tomorrow that I was supposed to finish for August, but it will be finished for September, and that's Grace of Kings.
that's the key.
Yeah, but it'll get done. So it's just gonna be a lot of listening tomorrow.
How much do you have left?
A lot.
Oh, no.
I
You
think I
don't need to
have
reschedule it, right? It's
I
not
know.
set in
So
stone.
I initially I planned this better and I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna start it really early in the month. And it was the first thing I started in August. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna then pair this with a lighter read. And then I paired it with God's Grave. Not God's Grave, Nevernight by Jay Kristoff. And I was like, okay, these are very opposite of each other, but it's easy. So I can do this. And then I went up to Montreal for a week, which was wonderful. I didn't read a single line of anything while
Mhm.
I was there. I just decompressed for a week. And then my mom came back with me to hang out with my kid. But last time she was here, I wrote my book and I spent zero time with her. So I said, this time I actively need to spend time with my mother. And I didn't read anything while my mom was here. So now I'm playing catch up because
And
I
that's
didn't
okay.
schedule it well.
Reschedule it. It's not like this sounds dramatic, but, no one's forcing you, holding a gun to your head and saying, "It
Well,
has to be done
I
tomorrow."
feel because it's a Patreon thing that I'm like, there's a responsibility. I need to do this type thing because that's what we're doing. So, I it's just yeah.
I I I will speak for Simon and everyone else on the Patreon, and I think if they would agree, it's okay if you reschedule,
I
please.
know. So I I think it'll be done by tomorrow. I'm like, it'll be done by tomorrow. I'll get it done. But then I'm not going to announce what our book is for next month unless you're in our Discord. But I am really excited about the book for next month. So there's that. So I always like to start these, as you know, with what have you been reading, watching, or doing that you've been loving lately? Tell us all about it.
So the book that I just finished today, I have been loving, uh, the sub-series and the series as a whole, Discworld. I just finished
Ah,
Men at Arms. It
nice.
was I I loved Guards, it was great. My
Hmm.
favorite is still Mort. I love Mort, apparently. I don't know if that's an
I'm going to
unpopular.
be reading it in October, I think. So I wanted to start the death books in October as kind of like I'm not normally a seasonal reader, but I thought it might be fun to do for a pre-Halloweeny thing.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Men at Arms just I loved it.
It's great.
I am not a mystery thriller type person,
Me either.
and The City Watch is basically I mean, 2 for 2, it's built around some sort of mystery or
Right.
procedural thing,
Yeah.
and that is the weakest part for me, and I admit and Derry, you'll hopefully not, draw and quarter me for this, but, it takes me a hot minute to get into Guards, and now, then City Watch, Men at
Yeah.
Arms, because he's establishing that kind of mystery and, setting that up. I'm like,
Yeah.
"Take it forever, I don't really care." But then once it's all established and he's able to focus on the characters,
Mhm.
I'm like, "Oh, this is so good. I love it so much."
Yeah. Derry, this is sort of my plan because I have only read Going Postal in Discworld and I really enjoyed it. I did feel at times it kind of lagged a little bit. I felt like it could have been a shorter book. And looking at Mort and what's the other one that I have of his? Reaper Man, those seem shorter than Going Postal. So I feel like I'll probably enjoy it from start to finish just because of the fact that I enjoyed Going Postal enough that I think that that will be the case. Hello, Simon. Discworld talking. Hey. Yes, moist. Hey, Brian.
I'm just going to show you a visualization. This
Mhm.
is the first City Watch book.
Okay.
Not terrible. You know, this is the last City Watch book.
So he's pulling they get longer. Yep.
Yeah. But I'm into it.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, it's the thing that's really nice, right? If you pick up Pratchett for the first time and you really like his books, is there's 41 of them. I mean, I think there's a general consensus that they do kind of vary in quality in terms of the earlier books aren't necessarily at the standard of what people think the City Watch and Death books are, but
Yeah.
there's still 41 books for you to enjoy, which is incredible. Like that's a really great thing.
Well, apparently 39 if you don't count Color of Magic and Light Fantastic.
I'm counting
Okay.
them. I'm counting them. But I'm kind of surprised like that Alan hasn't forced you to read these earlier.
Oh, it's Derry, we need to harp at Alan to post a video, but we wound up doing a chat, myself, Alan, Derry, and K Fox, and just talking about my experience with Discworld reading Equal Rights, More, and Guards.
Nice.
And I'm like, listen, it took literally years.
Yeah.
Like multiple years, as in like 3, 4, however long I've known Alan.
Right.
But I finally read these books.
Yes.
So
I was thinking about it before we hopped on here, and I was thinking Evie and I have overlapped in a couple of the books that we've liked, but historically, you and I do not read the same books. So I find that really fun just because this year, I don't know if we've read more than 2 books we've read a few because you read a few Emily Henrys and I read a few Emily Henrys, and then I read Spear and you always are reading Spear. So I feel like that's pretty fair. But I was trying to think if there was any other overlap that you and I had this year, and I'm not sure there is.
I mean, the Iliad. And
That's true, but I didn't read it this
The
year.
Odyssey.
Yes. So speaking of the Iliad, why don't we jump into that? This is something that you picked up this year, which I was really excited about, and you ended up loving it, which is fantastic.
Yeah, it's if you exclude Happy Place, and you exclude, well, really Happy Place, it would have been my favorite book of the year. Like,
well, didn't you say you just finished a book that has dethroned Happy Place?
Yeah. Well, as of that like midpoint period,
Gotcha.
it would have been my favorite book of the year. What is it? The mid-year book freakout tag, whatever that
Yes,
thing's called.
mid-year freakout book tag.
There you go. Yeah, and then so I started with the Robert Fagles translation, and it's just
It's not as good.
like it's too unnecessarily poetic. Like, I love poetry, don't get me wrong, but just don't. So when I tried Emily Wilson's translation, I was like, yes, this is
the
so
one.
approachable, and it's not like, oh, it, dumbs it down or whatever. It's just
No.
yeah, it's not unnecessarily complicated.
So what did you end up liking about it?
So, I would say in general, just like how modern it feels for something that is over, 2,000 years old.
Yes.
Everything about it, like, still hits, still slaps, as the kids say, whatever that thing is.
Yeah.
And it's just the depictions and the explorations of grief and war and just relationships. Like, I'm like, I didn't expect this.
I know.
This.
Right? It is kind of surprising. And I always tell people that if you want to see that humanity hasn't changed, go read the Iliad. Because I mean, it's around 2,700 years in terms of it being written down. And orally was told for quite a few years before that. And the themes are exactly what you said, stuff that we still currently deal with. And it just shows that humans are constantly fighting, and a lot of the time stuff that we're fighting over is very trivial and not necessary. And the dynamic between relationships and how they can grow stronger or how they can fracture, and how faith can interweave in our lives and be a very big presence for some people and an absent present for others. Like, it is very modern in its themes. And I think that a lot of the time it just gets kind of pegged as a difficult book because it's
Because it's
considered a
old.
classic.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I just don't think that's true. And I do think it can come down to reading the appropriate translation. And I'm happy that Emily Wilson's translation now exists, because I think that that's filling a niche that was needed in the market. But yeah, I would love for everyone to read it.
And I'm very much looking forward to the Odyssey, her translation of the Odyssey. And I
Yes.
need her to translate the Aeneid. The Aeneid, I wound up getting, I found another translation of the Aeneid that's unfortunately not Emily Wilson, because I really don't want to do Robert Bagel's. Shadi Barshk, I don't know if you've heard of that translator,
No.
but we'll see.
I struggle with the Aeneid. I will be very honest in that. Of the three, the Aeneid is by far and away my least favorite. The Odyssey is my number one. I love the Odyssey because the Odyssey to me is a fantasy book. It is just wild. There's magical beasts, creatures, gods. It's just like it's an epic fantasy. And it's so fun because of that. Whereas the Iliad, kind of like we were saying, it's a book about humanity, I feel like. And if that's what you're in the mood for, it just slaps in all the right places. The Aeneid is just straight up propaganda. The whole thing is propaganda. And I mean, it has points of it that you go, okay, I see what he was doing here. But for the most part, you go, this is a complete ripoff of,
It's
what
fan
Homer was doing.
fiction. It's
Yeah.
ancient fan fiction.
It is
So-
ancient fan fiction. It's 100% correct. That's a Sarah Rudin, or pretty common, I think, Sarah Rudin. I will read the written translation at some point. Good.
I actually, Derry, I started to listen to the audiobook narration of Emily Wilson's translation of the Iliad, and by Audra McDonald. It's really, really good.
Is it? That's good to know. Well, that's the whole thing, right? It's so funny. And I saw someone, this has been a meme that's been circulating lately, where it was saying that, your ancestors listened to oral stories for thousands of years, and you're going to tell me that audiobooks don't count. And we forget, right? Like, the Iliad was performed over many, many days, as was the Odyssey. It was actually sung. So can you imagine singing for hours? Oh my gosh, it would be exhausting. Audra McDonald is my friend's wife. That's awesome. That's super awesome. There's some. I mean, if the Metamorphosis definitely has more, Ovid and the Amores has the most, but that is a tale for a different time. Yeah, that's super good to know. I'd be curious if she also does the Odyssey. I mean, Metamorphoses it's quite a read. I don't know if you've read any Ovid, Evie. I think that you would probably really love Ovid, honestly, because it's romantic, but like off the wall and just sometimes depraved. Sometimes it is really kind of like the Iliad, where it's dealing with that human emotion in a way that no one else really quite understands. Ovid was so brash with his writings that he was expelled and exiled from Rome. So that's a fun story. But yeah.
I was double checking. I thought, I was like, I could have swore I had it, but apparently I don't. But I do have Euripides.
I love Euripides. I mean, here's the thing about Euripides. You need to go into your Euripides knowing he is a total misogynist. Like, he hates women, but some of his plays are fantastic.
I mean, he wrote a play called Trojan Women, right?
It's amazing. Like, it's actually amazing. It's strange though, because he has some plays where you look at them and you go, I don't think this man has ever spoken to a woman. Like, that's the vibe that comes across. And then you read the Trojan Women and you go, this had to have been written by a woman, because it is dealing with the Yes, The Trojan Women is so good. And it's dealing with the grief of the widows of the Trojan War. So it's actually a really great compendium to read if you've just recently read the Iliad. I really enjoyed it in that context. But talk about dealing with grief and being a conquered people. It is just it's such a unique voice in that story. And well, it's a play, but it's so so good. So you have that one too, the grief lessons, yeah.
Yeah. Heracles, Hecab.
I don't know if it's in that one. Is it in that one?
Um, Heracles,
Ooh, nice.
Hecab. I'm probably butchering that.
Akabe.
Um, Hippolytus.
Hippolytus.
There you go. Just correct my pronunciation. Oh, Trojan Women's not in this one.
I think it's its own small little book. I'm looking over at my shelf now, and I'm pretty sure that's what it is. But
Oh, here you go. Got it.
yeah, this must have been an awesome performance, Rogue. I am very, very jealous. That would have been incredible. But I didn't know that you really have you like read these yet, or are you going to read them? Okay.
I bought them because I'm like, I'm gonna make the Iliad part of my personality.
You should.
And then I just never read them. So
You'll get around to it, and that's okay. The thing that's fun about those is that they're short, especially when it's not being performed. Like it's a quick read, but simultaneously, you can really take your time with them if you want to, and you can dig into the character work, the way that the chorus acts as a character. Like it's really Greek plays, specifically Greek tragedies, are probably my favorite plays. I love them. So yeah, I mean, I know a lot of people really love Shakespeare, and that's great. But Greek tragedies, that's where it's at, guys.
I mean, it all had to start somewhere, I suppose.
Exactly. Well, he takes a lot of inspiration. I mean, I'm saying he for whatever purpose. Shakespeare could have been a woman.
There's an entire book about that.
There is an entire book about it. I am curious to read it after Leanna and Bookborn's TBR exchange. Yeah, I am really curious to read it. But yeah, Shakespeare definitely drew a lot of inspiration from Greek tragedy, which is great. Oh, that's amazing. Oh, so, so nice. Yep, exactly. Was inspired. Do you like Shakespeare too?
So I say yes with a caveat that I read it in high school and college. As many other young women and some men of my age, I was obsessed with the Baz Luhrmann Romeo and Juliet.
Yes. So good. And then which led into my Moulin Rouge obsession. So yes. I 100% get what you're saying.
I still cannot bring myself to even like watch any of the Moulin Rouge Broadway musicals. I know
It's so good. I went in March.
Okay.
So you have to go in knowing that it's different. It's very they've incorporated a lot of music that isn't in the movie, but it's done in a way that I really loved it. Josh had zero interest in seeing that play. He bought me tickets for my birthday, and he has said now it is probably his favorite show that he's seen on Broadway. It was so great, and the sets are incredible. The costuming is just off the charts fantastic. So just for atmosphere alone, 10 out of 10. It's worth seeing. It's so so good. Hey Chad.
I mean, I've never seen it on Broadway, but I don't think anything will ever top Hadestown for me. I saw the national tour.
Mm-hmm.
It's just so good.
I've been interested in seeing that one. We were looking at possibly going to New York again soon. We went in March, like I said, and I was looking at what shows we might want to go see, and Hadestown was one that kept popping up, and I was like, well, maybe. The best Mercutio ever is Ben Affleck from Shakespeare in Love. I will die on that hill. That's who my cat is named after. Sorry, Evie.
Sorry, I just I have a visceral reaction to Shakespeare in Love, mainly because I'm not a big fan of Gwyneth Paltrow.
That's fine. That's honestly fair. Honestly, the sole thing of that movie that I love more than anything is Ben Affleck's like 7 minutes on screen. They are phenomenal, and I absolutely love them. But yeah, I haven't read like a ton of Shakespeare as an adult for the most part. It kind of tapered out after high school and college, but I've seen some performances. Like I went and I saw Much Ado About Nothing a few years ago, and I really enjoyed that. Bold statement, yes.
I still have like the original All the Shakespeare stuff. I just, you know.
Simon, my cat, is named Mercutio, but sometimes I say Mercutio, aka Ben Affleck. Baz Luhrmann's Romeo and Juliet. You mean the most unhinged Shakespeare adaptation? It's up there, but I love it.
It's great.
It is great. I will say though, I also really love the Hamlet adaptation that's like 5 hours long.
Is that the one with the more modern one with what's his face? Ethan Hawke?
No, it's the one with what's his name now? It's gonna drive me crazy. He's the
Kenneth
guy
Branagh?
who he does like all the Shakespeare stuff, and he plays Gilderoy Lockhart in Harry
Yeah.
Potter. Yeah,
Kenneth Branagh.
Kenneth Branagh. Yeah, I really like his adaptation, but I just like all the Shakespeare stuff he does for the most part. So that's really great. I was hoping
I haven't seen that one because I'm terrible. So
don't worry about it. It's 5 hours, so you're fine.
one thing that I do want to see is the latest, The Tragedy of Macbeth with Denzel Washington.
I thought that looked really good. I was actually really sad because Josh and I are going to be taking a trip to England pretty soon, and I was looking at what might be on the West End when we were there, and I love David Tennant so very much, and I know that he does a ton of Shakespeare productions, and we're going to be missing him doing Macbeth by like a few weeks. I was like, oh, this is such a bummer. So we'll just have to go back. Yeah. By Joel Cohen too.
Denzel's really cool. That's what that is.
Mm-hmm.
Denzel himself is cool.
Yeah, he is. Like David Tennant. That's a bold claim. Are you a fan of Doctor Who at all, Evie?
I have seen bits and pieces of episodes, and I just
doesn't work for you.
Haven't gotten into it. I'm sure if I actually sat down and actually watched something.
It's just campy, but you like that's the thing. If you like camp, then it'll be pretty fine. If you don't, then it probably won't.
Harry, if you're still in the chat, I did watch the first probably 30 minutes of Firefly. So
did you like it?
Yeah, it was fine. So
Alan Tudyk makes that show for me personally. But he makes most things that he's in for me.
I mean, he's in A Knight's Tale, for God's sakes. So
what a great movie. What a great movie. Oh, that is such a fun movie.
That movie is how you bring modern humor and modern references to classic settings.
Absolutely. That is a phenomenal film.
So great.
Right before we hopped on here, we do a thing every night with my kid before she goes to bed that we pretty much listen to music so she can calm down. And I've been pushing 90s music really hard, which so far has been working. Like she got really upset tonight that I passed by the Verve and I had to go back and put it on. And I was like, we're making progress here. Excellent. But I then was like, you know what? I'm going to look up the 10 Things I Hate About You soundtrack because I love 10 Things I Hate About You so much. And Josh has yet to see this movie. So we pretty much decided tonight. I was like, yes, we're watching this film because A, it's fantastic. And also it's a Shakespeare adaptation. It's The Taming of the Shrew.
Plot twist, everyone. The stream is ending now. So you guys can go watch 10 Things I Hate About You.
Oh man. Pete, I love rap music, as does Josh. This is something that I played for my kid in your utero, like on repeat. And she hasn't come around yet, but she will. But old school rap music, not new rap music. I don't anything after like 2002. I kind of don't know. Do you have a genre of music that you really love?
I mean, nowadays it's basically like Hosier type. Gillian Welch, actually, her and David Rawlings just came out with a new album, so I've been listening to that. Aurora as well, more like alternative pop, whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and then alt country type stuff. So,
I obviously missed this comment about the Van Gogh episode. Yes, the Van Gogh episode is amazing. I highly recommend
that's one of the clips that I saw, and I knew enough of the context to understand it. Like, obviously, I know who Van Gogh is, but yeah. So I think that's one of the clips that I've seen.
East Coast. Definitely East Coast. Even though I do like a few West Coast, it's definitely East Coast. Didn't think that's where our conversation was going to be going tonight, but here we are. So you and I this year both read Emily Henry. Can we talk about Emily Henry and how much we love her?
This is going to be a love bomb just about Emily Henry.
I mean, we could do that, honestly. I love her so much.
Emily Henry book club episode.
I love her so much, and it's one of those things that I'm now professing to everybody how much I love her. If it's a random person, I'm just like, hey, have you heard of Emily Henry? Because if not, please go read her books because they're incredible.
Yeah, it's, and I've said this before. I don't know if I'm sure I've said it to you and Yolanda. It's like, I have not, like, ever since I read Jane Austen when I was 15, set an unusually and unrealistically high bar for romance, like, as literature. And nothing has been able to even come close to that experience. It's all too formulaic for me, and just not, it's all about the what is it, the smut or whatever. Like, I'm like, sure, that's fine, but like, give me more meat to the story.
Yeah.
And Emily Henry did that. Oh my God, specifically with Happy Place. I still want to do that video of like Happy Place versus or Happy Place and Persuasion. How they are both similar, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just love how, yes, obviously there is the romance, there's the couple. Not only is the couple believable together, as well as their like conflict, but individually they are compelling, and then everyone around them is compelling, and everything that is going on with everyone is, I don't want to say compelling because that sounds weird, but like, it's
endearing.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, they are.
Yes, we are talking about Emily Henry. Hush.
And it's the best. Yeah, I was honestly really surprised, and the reason I gave her a try, I tried to be a little different in my approach to genres this year, which, if everyone knows, if you go back and you watch my early videos where I straight up say I don't like romance and fantasy, that is now a lie, because I do. And then
that is your foot taste, Laura. I'm just saying.
Right? And then not great, but you know what? It's one of those things that I own that mistake, and it's fine. But I then saw Yolanda made a video about contemporary romance and how she had given contemporary romance a go. And I was like, you know what? I haven't read romance, like straight romance, ever, until I read one by accident earlier this year because it was listed on Goodreads as fantasy romance, and there was no fantasy in the book. I kept waiting for something to happen, and I got to the end and thought, well, that just never panned out. And she was really gushing about Emily Henry, and I thought, you know what? I'll give it a go and I'll see what it is. And I think I started with Funny Story because it was her new novel that came out, and a bunch of people were talking about it. And I loved it so much because it is a funny story. It's got such great humor. But one of the things that Emily Henry does so beautifully is there is depth given to her characters in a way in which they are dealing with real life issues / trauma. And you know someone that is dealing with one of the issues in any of her books at any given time. Like, it's just so relatable and approachable. And I think that she is such a unique voice in that all of her books, for the most part, feel very tangible to me. And I don't know if I've had an experience with another author where I go, all of this is believable.
So funny you say that. One, I was at the bookstore Thursday. I was at the bookstore on Thursday, and I came across a book that just, I was in the romance section. I was like, you know what? I'll just see. I was like, I know Abby Jimenez, that's recommended. Yeah. But what else is there? And I'm just like scrolling through, kind of wandering through the shelves, and Hazel Hayes pops out at me.
Okay.
And I'm like, and I read the back of the book. It's called, what's it called? Better by Far.
Okay.
And it's just screaming my name. Like, it's pulling me almost to it. So I wound up getting it and her other book, which was not in the romance section. It was in the general fiction section. So
I'm thumbs
Um,
upping you.
my Mac doesn't do it, apparently. It makes me very sad. So
Mine only does it when I'm holding my finger like this on
that's
my
weird.
arm. It's very strange. If I try to do like a straight thumbs up, it won't do it. Yeah, it's very, very odd.
But yeah, so Hazel Haze. It looks very somber
Okay,
and
that's right up
melancholic,
your alley.
and I'm like, hey, that's me.
Yes. You love a good somber read is what we've come to realize. Anything melancholic is something that you're
Uh,
gonna
if
love.
it's sad, depressing, and as long as it's not a fun book, just for fun,
Mhm.
that's like my perfect. I don't read for fun, as Angela tells me all the time. I don't read for fun. So
What's your Emily Henry ranking so Simon can know?
okay, so top happy place for sure.
Yes.
Nothing touches it. Second place, book lovers. Then funny story. Then beach read. Then people we meet on vacation. So
Yep. I think yours and Yolanda's is pretty similar, but you just switch happy place and
place and visuals.
book
Book
lovers.
lovers.
Yeah. Because that's Yolanda was part of our reading group. You should definitely read Happy Place and you will love it. And if you don't, that's okay too. But
I
I hope
mean,
you love
it's
it.
no guarantee, but
No.
Marianne and I both loved the Gorman Guest series. Shout out to Marianne and shameless self plug in case you guys have read the series. We did a discussion on each of the books. But I would be surprised if you didn't at least appreciate it, Marianne.
That's the thing. I feel like even if everyone I know that's read it, if it didn't resonate with them in the way that it resonated with me, they still come out of it appreciating that typically they think Emily Henry is a very good author.
Yeah.
So there's something there for everybody. Derry, I am happy to welcome everybody into my romantasy club. I'm happy to have you here. Not really a genre. That's how it's done. So much romance nowadays lacks feeling and longing. I would agree that a lot of it does, but I feel like with Emily Henry, it doesn't. Like I believe the relationship so deeply, especially with Happy Place because it is a second chance romance and the relationship is an established one. Oh, it's perfection.
Okay.
It's so good. Oh, yes. I agree. This is the other big thing is I wish that we had more books dealing with older protagonists as opposed to our 19-year-olds.
And that's the other thing. Like Emily Henry's couples, for
Yep.
the most part, other than people we meet on vacation, they're all
They're
in
in their
their
30s.
30s.
They're in their 30s
No.
and people we meet on vacation.
Oh, are they? I thought they were in their 20s.
I think they are maybe the youngest would be 29.
Oh.
Maybe. Yeah. I just reread it not that long ago and I already want to reread it again because they announced the casting for the show and now I'm like, "Oh, I want to read it again." Cuz that's the thing, guys. All of Emily Henry's stuff is being adapted. So if you want to get in before it's really cool and popular, now is the time even though it's already really cool and popular.
Yeah.
Yeah, usually authors have something they're amazing at. Yeah. I Do you have any fantasy author that you feel writes romance well?
Um, I mean, I would say Robin Hobb, but I feel like that's a given. So her romances are not necessarily like could you even call she writes relationships in a very believable, um, very organic way, whether
Mhm.
they be romantic or platonic or what have you. Um, yeah, so I would say Robin Hobb. Glenn Cook is the same way. I know this is tangential to romance, but like
Mhm.
he also writes relationships in a really really good way.
I really wanna read him.
Glenn Cook is like, again, don't draw and quarter me, Derry. Glenn Cook is, in my opinion, the best at character voice and character dynamics. Like
That for me is Joe Abercrombie. So that's my person, at least for
I
now.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Joe Abercrombie said, "Yes, I was inspired by and
Glenn Cook.
influenced by Glenn
Yeah.
Cook."
Interesting.
Um, Yeah, because the way that he writes, every book is written by an analyst.
Okay.
So it's from a certain character's perspective, but you get all these other characters that are so dynamic and complex from these characters' perspectives.
Mhm.
And then you get different insight into them based on who is narrating or writing the
Yeah.
annals. And it's just, I've never seen anyone do something like that. It's so, so good.
For me, it depends too what kind of mood I'm in. Like, speaking of Mr. Joe Abercrombie, I love the way in which he writes romance because it's funny to me. And like it's chaotic. And I know it's going to be dysfunctional. Like I never go into a Joe Abercrombie read going, I am here for a functional relationship.
Mhm.
I go into it going, there is going to be something insane going on, and I am going to eat it up because it's written hilariously. Like that for me, I also really enjoy, but I simultaneously enjoy an Emily Henry where it's like the relationship is
Yeah.
foundational to the story. But it really just depends on what exactly I'm in the mood for. I mean, you got to do what you got to do. I don't lean into that paranormal one just yet. So far, I'm sticking with my fae for the most part, or
Yeah.
dragons, one or the other.
Do not click on Kevin's comment, but that's hysterical.
Yeah, I mean, that is as real as it gets. Like, that's pretty much exactly it. See, this is the
Ah,
thing. I enjoy his relationships too because they're absolutely hilarious. Have you read much Abercrombie? Because they
I
don't.
I read, like, the preview chat or, like, I started to read, like, the preview pages on Amazon of the blade itself, and I'm just like, "I don't know if this is the right time for me."
I don't know if
Um,
you would like it, honestly. I'm not
so
sure.
Pete and I are supposed to start, First Law in January because he hasn't read Abercrombie either, so
I would get in on that as a reread. I was at who was I talking to about rereading this the other day? Someone.
probably Leanna because she's reread it, like, 20 different times.
No, it was someone, but I can't remember exactly who it was now off the top of my head. But yeah, I really want to reread it. It was Caleb. Caleb from Celebrity
Oh,
because
okay.
I think his plan is to try to finish uh the standalones and Age of Madness this year, possibly. I can't remember now, but I'm pretty positive it's Caleb. But I want to reread them already because I read the standalones and Age of Madness this year, and I want to go back now and read First Law and see if my memory is correct and if I still do prefer First Law to Age of Madness because I know that's heresy for a lot of people. Yes, First Law in January. Spread the word. That's what's happening. That's why the second First Law is so good. Oh yeah, I mean, ugh.
I am giving my giving my permission. I'm giving myself permission of, like, we're only doing the first 3, and if we don't like it or even if we don't like I don't even like the first book, I'm like, I'm not gonna force myself to read
Mhm.
the second or third. Like, I understand, like, nothing happens within
That's
the
what Simon is
plot,
saying.
so I'm going to have that in the back of my mind of, like, alright, if I don't like it because nothing happens,
I That's the thing
I'm
though.
supposed to feel that way apparently.
I love it because I feel like, well, first of all, Simon, I love that everyone is terrible. Like that for me is really enjoyable because I'm really sick of the farm boy epic fantasy quests. Like it's not my genre. I get that there is an audience for it obviously because Wheel of Time and all that stuff have done very very well, but I love something more akin to everyone is terrible. Who's going to be the least terrible here? And the way in which he weaves in inner monologue, I think, is unmatched. At least so far in my reading journey, Abercrombie is top for that. Which I love a good inner monologue. It makes my reading experience much more enjoyable.
Hey, there's Pete. Hey, Pete.
Where is Pete? Hello. There we are. Yeah, we'll see how it goes. I'll likely read the first thing. I think honestly, if you I am in the minority where the blade itself is my favorite of the first 3, but I love all of them. I think my order would probably actually go 1, 2, 3. I think the second book is phenomenal because we have an understanding of the characters by that point, and that's the book where you really get more of the world, which I really enjoyed. Book 1 was really a character study, and then book 2 was, okay, this is the world in which these characters actually live in and some of the history of that place. And I just loved it. I ate it up. So I'm hoping you will have a similar experience. But I actually think, Evie, that you might like the standalones more than the first trilogy.
We'll see. If I actually like his writing itself, then
Mhm.
I think that for me is like the way that I mean, I know it sounds dumb, but like, because I feel like writing is the way for everyone to get their like story across, whether it be
Mhm.
characters or plot or whatever.
Sure.
But I don't know, if the writing works for my brain and it clicks with me, then
Mhm.
that's my general gateway into
Seriously.
the story.
That
So
for me was the same thing because I typically go in blind to a lot of my reads, and I actually bought First Law for Josh because every Christmas, this was before I joined BookTube, even though I still do this. I'm a member of this massive fantasy book group on Facebook. And every November, basically, I go in and I say, this is what my husband has really liked. This is what he has not liked. Recommend me books. And I usually will buy him like 7 or 8 book ones or standalones. And I go, if you like it, then carry on with the series. And if not, it's a one and done. Don't worry about it. And so many people recommended First Law based on his likes. And he ended up reading, I think, the entire trilogy in like 2 weeks or something like that. And he loved it and was like, you absolutely need to read this. Like, you're really going to like it. And as soon as Glocta appeared on the page, I was absolutely hooked. But I could see you liking 2 of the standalones probably more than apparently I'm getting all the Mac stuff today. More than First Law. I hope you love all of them because I would love for you to love all of them.
we shall see.
Yes. Absolutely. I love Malazan to Abercrombie. I haven't read Malazan yet. It'll happen one day. I'm just not there yet. Have you
Yeah.
read it?
I read Gardens of the Moon,
Mhm.
and then I read the first 75 to 100 pages of Dead House Gates and DNF'd it. And then I went back and I tried to reread Gardens of the Moon because I promised Kev that I would read up through Memories of Ice,
Mhm.
and I DNF'd my reread of Gardens of the Moon. So,
So it's not a series for you.
not for me. So
That's fine. See, that's the thing. I have been told by one group of people that they think I'm really gonna love it, and then by an opposing group of people saying you are absolutely gonna hate it. And I'm like, cool. That's great.
that always like the expectation, whether it be from external people saying, "Oh, you're gonna love this book," or my own expectation of like, "Oh, this person recommended this book to me. Oh, I should like it because they recommended
Right.
it to me." So it's like I know everyone tries to fight the expectations and
Yeah.
stuff like that, but I fall victim to it all the time.
Mhm.
And I was actually I think it was Jimmy. He said something like, I'm paraphrasing here,
Mhm.
that his perception of me is like if I'm told to do some like if I'm told to do something, or if a book is forced upon me, I'm just like I won't like it at all. And I'm like,
Yeah.
that's fair. Murray.
Hey,
Um,
Mercutio.
and I'm
Speaking
like,
of Mercutio.
I'm like, yeah, that is 100,000% correct because like I turn into a tan, a tantrum toddler tantrum. There you go. I have a toddler tantrum of like I don't want to read it, and that's
Mhm.
also why I DNF a lot of buddy reads because I'm just like I get excited
Yeah.
about like oh I want to be included because
Mhm.
people want to include me, and then I'm like oh shit I
I
don't
get
know
it.
what I got myself into.
I get it. I felt that way about Tigana this year, where I was part of a buddy read, and I was like, this book and I are just not on the same page. I should not be reading this book. And I hate DNFing in general and DNF Tigana and felt really bad about it, but I was like, I'm so sorry, guys. I just can't do it. Oh.
I did that with Sailing to Serenity. Mind you, I had read A Brightness Long Ago, really, really liked it. It was actually one of my books of the year
Mhm.
last year. And I started Sailing to Serenity. I think I got 100 pages into it, 50 to 100 pages. I don't know. What are numbers?
Mhm.
And I just hit a wall with it. And I'm like, I'm going to hate read this if I continue it. and I
Mhm.
know it was purely
Right.
a me thing, like, I was not in a good, like, headspace.
Yeah.
I was like, "I need to DNF this
Mhm.
because this is not the time or the place for this book."
Yeah. I totally get that. I mean, I've talked about it pretty regularly on my channel, but I DNF'd Circe several years ago because it just wasn't the right time. And now, lo and behold, I love it. And I tell everyone to read it, and that Alan and his opinion on Circe is wrong. But, that's fine.
Titus Grown is a perfect example for me of, like,
Mhm.
I I tried reading that book 7 separate times, and I would get a little bit further every single time, and I would just hit a wall and stop and have to start it back over because it had been so long since I tried last reading it. And finally, I was like, "You know what? Dadgummit!" Earlier this year, I'm like, "I'm gonna do it. If I'm gonna
Mhm.
read this, I'm gonna read the damn thing."
Mhm.
And it does take a little bit more effort to read. Not to say that, I'm, really smart or anything, but I had to know that I could set aside that brain power,
Mhm.
comprehend this story, and really
Yeah.
experience it and give it the time that it deserved. Um, and it's genuinely, like, one of my favorite series of all time now.
That's
So
amazing. I love that. See, I have not quite had that to that extent. Like I love Cersei, but I had a feeling when I DNF'd it, I was like, I probably will like this book at a different time, just not right now. The book that I have had that I had to restart it multiple times was Eye of the World multiple times before I finally got through it. And I felt sort of similar because the book is so descriptive. And it's something I do give Robert Jordan credit for is that he is quite a world builder. And I was very tired reading Eye of the World. I was like, I have to have the appropriate amount of brain power to see how many times split riding dresses are mentioned and like things like that and like really pay attention. But I feel like certain books are kind of just like that, where they might be a little bit more arduous to get through. And sometimes when you get to the end of it, you reflect on it and you go, that was incredible. And this is now one of my favorite series of all time. And other times you go, what a task. And it could go either way.
so what have you been reading that you've been loving?
I have barely read anything in August. I almost said October. Like I'm jumping ahead to cooler weather. I'm so ready for cold weather.
Hey, Dunkin' Donuts finally, like, were like, "Hey, here's an alert, pumpkin spice everything." I'm like, "Yes!"
Oh man.
I'm so
So
basic when it comes to that.
here's the thing though. I grew up in Canada. I lived there until I was 26, almost 27. September is cold. Like it's not cold cold, but it's enough that you start wearing layers outside, and mentally that's still where I'm at even though I live in a place where that is not at all the reality. And I need cooler weather. And when I went up to Montreal, it was cold in the evenings to the point where I was wearing sweaters and I was thinking, this is incredible. I am so in my element. And I came back to, 96. It was 96 a couple days ago. And I was like, I'm done. I'm done for the year. I need cool weather now. So mentally it's October for me. But
Ugh.
what have I been reading that I have been really loving? I have been in a really big rut, honestly, since the summer. I struggled deeply with Malice and Dark Age, if people have been keeping up with my stuff. And I did a bunch of rereads, and that for me kind of helped. And I reread Emily Henry in that group of stuff. I reread Akatar for the sixth time this year,
And
which
you only
ended up
just
being fun.
read it in February, right? For the
Yep,
first time? Yeah,
pretty
okay.
much, yeah, February or March, one or the other. I can't even remember, but I read all of her stuff in a 30-day time span. I just like breezed through it. This year for me has been a very interesting year in terms of, I don't want to call it easier reading because some of the books that I've done, like Spear, for example, I would not classify as easy reading. And simultaneously, I would say the first half of the year for me was solely mood based. I was like, what am I in the mood for this second? And is it easy?
I I don't wanna say that correlation equals causation, but, would you say that the obligation of buddy reads and Patreon picks killed your
A,
reading
a little
mood?
bit, honestly, a little bit. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I would say that it has. But one thing that has been a nice experience to come out of that is Josh and I seldom read the same things at the same time. So we like First Law, for example, Josh read it 4 months before me. He's been waiting for me to read Name of the Wind for like a year and a half now. I've been waiting for him to read Pure and Essie for almost 2 years. Like there's just books that we're not in sync with that the other one really loves and is wanting the other one to read. So when we started the book club, it was okay, let's make a list of collectively the books that either I have read that I really want you to read simultaneously. Let's do the same for you. And or books that we have both wanted to read that neither one of us has read. So that was the list originally. And like it just hasn't necessarily panned out in the way that we were anticipating. Like we both thought based on what we had seen about Malice, which I will admit was not much, that we were going to enjoy Malice. And that didn't really end up being the case. Spear, I kind of wish I would have had maybe a bit longer to read because I found that while I did enjoy it, I came out of that conversation with you specifically saying, I'm pretty sure I'm at a 4 out of 5. I wish I would have had maybe a bit longer to sit with it. I think if I had read Spear over maybe 2 months, it would have been an even higher ranking for me. And
It's okay, you don't have to
yeah.
justify your 4-star rating, it's fine. I'm
No,
still
but
here,
that's
we're still friends.
honestly, like that for me, I think is I'm kind of talking myself through it. I think that really is what it is for me. But so much of it, I think too, is I've read more this year than I have in probably close to a decade because the last time I read this much was for my graduate degree. And Josh was saying to me the other day, he's like, I really think you hit burnout. And I wouldn't disagree with that. I was having some months where I was reading 18, 19 books back to back. And I was sitting back and thinking on it, like, how much of these books am I actually retaining? And it's not much. Certain books stick out more than others. And for me, I think I just needed time to slow down a
Yeah.
little bit and kind of reset. And I was thinking about it just in terms of like the patterns in which I go through. And I think that summer tends to be that for me. I didn't put out a lot of content on the channel over the summer. Most of it ended up being a few lives and then like the odd vlog here and there. But the last things I really loved that I read, Will of the Many. That was a new book that I read that I really enjoyed. I really, really liked The Will of the Many, and I'm excited for book 2. I found a few things within it problematic. But overall, I really enjoyed it. I gave it a 4.5 out of 5. So that was the newest book that I have read that I've really enjoyed.
Do you think your, I'll just say, love for that book, is because of, like, the content, like, that it's, allegedly, like, Roman inspired, I guess? I don't know, that's the right
No.
word. Or is it, like, the
No.
writing, or
So I did enjoy the writing. It was interesting because I've read 5 books of the Red Rising series this year. So it's very fresh in the forefront of my brain. That's one of the series that has really stuck out for me this year. And when I started reading Will of the Many, I said, okay, there is a lot of similarities and parallels here between the magic system, I feel like, and the way the book is not the magic system, excuse me, the way the world is sort of structured and the initial introductory plot to our main character. I felt like that changed once you started to learn the magic system. And I was like, okay, this is good. This is different. And I think what it was is that I had read back to back several groups that I found to be very formulaic in that it was kind of like that. Here's our hero. This is the journey they go on. And it's going to be this big epic adventure. And this is it. Whereas Will of the Many isn't afraid to do things that I appreciate, like kill people. Because that for me is a really big thing. I detest a resurrection trope or like anything like that. I don't like it. So when you have an author that I feel is really willing to take risks in a book one, especially, that to me is a really endearing quality. So I really appreciated it for that fact alone. But it was also my first James Islington book. And I think he's a good writer. I think, I've heard interesting opinions in regards to the Lycanis trilogy in comparison to The Will of the Many. I have book 1 of Lycanis here. I do plan to read it at some point.
I was actually going to say, do you think reading that would, like, not get you out of, like, your reading funk, but, like, maybe reinvigorate?
I
Like,
don't know. Honestly, like, I really don't know. I've been looking at different books in regards to stuff that I want to read. And it's funny because a lot of them are coming out next year. So I was like, well, I've got a little bit of ways to go for that. But I am excited to read. I know you're not a Sanderson fan, but I am looking forward to reading Wind and Truth. So that'll be coming out in December. But before then, I'm looking forward to kind of just pulling back a little bit, looking at what's on my shelves and maybe picking a few things that aren't really what I was thinking I was going to read. I've been wanting to read The Book That Wouldn't Burn for like 2 years, pretty much since it came out, but I just haven't gotten around to it. Matt, this is another one I've owned Goblin Emperor for a really long time and I haven't read it yet. But I don't know. I don't know. I feel like I'm going to maybe be a little bit more open going into the next couple months, especially when I love reading in fall. Like fall and winter reading is just, it's cozy and it's like a vibe for me. So I get more excited, I feel like, reading during those times of the year, even though I love reading all the time. But summer is, I wanted to be outside more. It was just a time to kind of disconnect, and things like that. So I don't know, maybe I feel like it's layered.
Yeah, I mean, like, I technically have like 9 books on my TBR for September that I should be reading.
Yeah. So what are some of them?
So I've been breaking out Blackwater. So it's in 6 parts. Supposed to read part 4 this month. Which that should be fine. The King of Elfland's Daughter by Lord Dunsany. Swan Song by Robert McCammon. You hear that, Kev? Perfume, The Story of a Murder by Patrick Suskind. Beloved by Toni Morrison. And I'm supposed to finish Ship of Destiny, which that's a reread, so I'm just, whenever I get to it is whenever I get to it. And then Mariana Enriquez's new collection, A Sunny Place for Shady People. And
you've got your anthology thing coming up, don't you?
Yes. Okay. Yep. September 1st is when it starts, tomorrow through October. And then The Long Valley, which is a collection by John Steinbeck. So
you do love Steinbeck.
But I decided to go completely rogue. And I was like, you know what? I saw Jimmy, spoiler alert for his Patreon pick, this one for his Patreon pick. And I'm like, dadgummit, if Jimmy reads this book before I do, and Ben has been telling me that I need to read this book, like, this is the one that I should start with Catherine Dunn. Like, I can't live with myself if that happens. So I started it, and I'm like literally 5 pages in, and I'm like, listen, if this is how this starts, I don't know where this character is gonna go, and it's one of those hot girl fiction books.
Oh, nice.
If this is how she starts, and I'm already feeling like, oh, look, this character is me, I'm concerned about myself as a person. If I'm seeing myself already in this character. Otessa Moshfegh's Eileen. Please, anyone that reads Eileen, don't look at me differently. But I identify so much with Eileen. Like, with that character.
That's funny. Britain, hopefully at some point soon. I am not ready for a book that size yet, unless it's Wind and Truth, but maybe soon.
For Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, when I read it, I was like, you know what? It's separated in 3 volumes. I'll read it over the course of 3 months. And then I wound up reading the 2nd volume that 2nd month, and I'm like, I can't not read the 3rd volume. So I wound up finishing it in like a month and a half. So
nice. So Simon asks, what makes a 5-star for you both?
So for me, there's degrees of 5-star. There's 5-star, like, objectively, not objectively, but like this is a 5-star book, like Guards, 5-star book. I'm like, this is a great book. will it be like an all-time favorite for me? Probably not. Again, Derry,
Yeah.
please don't draw and corner me. In comparison, Mort is a 5-star book and it's a favorite of all time.
Mhm.
So it's just that I don't know, that je ne sais quoi, like indefinable, undefinable thing,
Mhm.
quality that makes that all-time favorite for me. But to make a 5-star book a 5-star book, I would say for me it's the craft of the novel or the story has to really be intentional.
Mhm.
And not to say it's like, oh, it's gotta be like, literary and,
Sure.
cutesy or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, but it's just gotta fit for the story and, like, work for me. Uh,
Mhm.
yeah, and then obviously themes and characters and stuff like that. I know that's very broad and generic, but it
I
all
hear
has
you
to,
though.
like, mesh together and everything works for the story on every level that
Sure.
really elevates it to a great book, so
Mhm. I'm a completely vibes person for my rating. It really depends on how much I enjoyed myself. I will approach certain books differently, but I feel like it's really difficult to have a universal rating system. I feel like
Mhm.
unless it's vibes things where it's like if you're comparing Spear Cuts Through Water with Akatar, they are not comparable books. They are not at all similar, you
And
know?
that well,
So
I think that goes for, like, the intentionality is what I was referring
yes.
to. It's like, if you have I don't know, just trying to think off my shelves, I don't know, KJ Parker
Mhm.
writing an Emily Henry book, like, it's not gonna work.
No.
Like,
And
it's
that's
not gonna work.
exactly it.
And
And
vice
that's
versa.
exactly it. And I mean, I think mood reading plays into that so much, right? Where you look at a book and you go, I'm in the mood for that right now. And that can inherently up a vibe for a book. And you look at that and you go, 5-star read. And then you might read it at a different time and you go, why on earth was this a 5-star read for me? But it just hit at the right time for you. And that's great.
There are some books that I have been like, "All right, I'm on this 5-star high, 5 stars, it's great," and then I take a step back from it, whether it be a day after, a week
Mhm.
after, whatever, and I'm just like, "Actually, it's not 5 stars." So in my I won't change my rating, I'll just be like,
Mhm.
in my mind, it's,
Internally,
low.
yeah.
And
Yep.
alternatively, Tender is the Flesh is a great example by Augustina Bastarrica.
Mhm.
I rated it 3 stars.
Hmm.
3.5 at the time, I wasn't even doing half stars, so it's 3 stars to me.
Uh-huh.
It is one of my favorite books.
There you
Like,
go.
it's not an all-time favorite, but it's
Yeah.
definitely, like, to the point that I will read everything that she writes when it comes out.
Mhm.
So,
That's fair. I mean, I've had a couple where I have retroactively upped my rating. Pure and Essie specifically was the one that I was like, it's higher for me now.
it was 4 stars when I read it, and I'm like, the more that I
It's
stay
5
move
stars.
away from it, yeah, it's 5
It's 5
stars.
stars. See, I was at a 4, I think like a 4.25, 4.5, and the longer I sat with it, I was like, it's 5 stars forever. That book is phenomenal. And funny story, for example, I went back and I lowered it after I reread it. I was like, oh, I don't know. It was Beach Read. It was Beach Read specifically because when I read Beach Read the first time, I was like, "Oh, I love this. This is amazing." And then when I reread it, I was like, "It's still good, but I don't love it in the same way that I thought I did, especially compared to the
Yeah,
other
I was
books that
gonna
she's
say, like,
written."
you also had read her other stuff before, so it's like, that
Exactly. I
can't be
hadn't
good.
read Happy Place yet. Hadn't read Happy Place yet. Matt, I think you should read it. It is a fun read. I mean, it's a big book, but it's good. I also did the audio for that and I really enjoyed the audio, but
Who does the audio for it? Do you know? Do you remember?
I can't remember his name off the top of my head. Let me look it up. Audible.
Wonder if it's Simon Vance. I feel like it's
It
always
is not Simon Vance. It is not. Where is it? Will of the Many.
That's correct, Simon. Sorry, I'm just catching up on chat. My reading motivation is to read before Jibby because I am a wannabe hipster. I'm influenced by Alan in that I have to read something before everybody else does.
Hey Kyle, if you're still here.
Okay.
It was you and Morton, by the way. That's who
Oh, okay.
does Will of the Many. Yes, read the book that wouldn't burn. I would love to at some point. That's the thing. I just don't know when it's gonna be. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of it too. I love a completed series because I'm a binger. Like I love a good binge. It's one of my favorite things. If I find a series that I love, I just dig my claws in, and I will read from start to finish.
To beat a dead horse about this series, but Gormenghast, I have not read a series that quickly,
Mhm.
like, in a while. I mean, actually, no, I take that back. I am tasting my own foot right now because I finished the Black Company series. I read all 10
Mhm.
books in literally almost 12 months exactly.
Nice.
Um, and then Gormenghast is so, like, and honestly, I think that's what reinvigorated me, like, with
Mhm.
reading.
Yeah.
Compared to last year, I read, I think, 88 books last year. Ooh, if you do, like, quantity or whatever. And this year, I will be lucky if I can hit 60, and
Yeah.
that's fine
Mhm.
because I'm absolutely, utterly enjoying everything that
And
I'm reading.
that's the best. See, like, I have a ridiculously high number of books, and I'm like, but I haven't loved everything that I've read. Matt wants to know if you like Blackwater.
I'm loving it. Like, when I get into it, I'm just like, "Yeah, this is great." Um, I'm supposed to be buddy reading it with D, but I think she's, like, going through some stuff, so D,
Mm.
if you, watch this on replay, I'm so sorry, but I kinda, like, I just disregarded our buddy read, and I just blasted on, so I'm so sorry.
Uh, Evie's reading motivation must read before Jimmy. That's funny. If it's not Hogwarts or GDK fantasy, it hasn't been doing much for me this year. I mean, I get it. That's the thing. Like sometimes you gotta just lean into. I'm embracing rereading this year too, which has been a thing for me. And I haven't done it before previously. Like I did it as a kid because I just reread Harry Potter all the time. But now as an adult, like I hadn't reread books in probably at least 6 years. I want to say that the last book I reread prior to this year was probably American Gods. And this year I was just thinking, I reread Emily Henry books within 2 weeks of each other because you then read them and I was like, I want to read them again. You're fine on God's cards, Evie, but if you don't make Weird Sisters part of your personality, I'll be majorly disappointed.
I mean, and I think I said this in our discussion about Discworld, Derry, if I had to rank them more so far based on the first books, Mort's on top, then Equal Rights, then Guards Guards. So,
Here you go.
um, I love me Death Incarnate and talk about mortality. Like, again, I love sad books, and that's sad book adjacent for Terry Pratchett. So
That's funny. Have any of you two read anything by Nicola Griffith or C.J. Chera? I have not.
I have read Spear. And Matt in the chat, I need to read Hild so we can read Meanwood together.
Mm.
Meanwood, which are both by Nicola Griffith.
Oh, nice.
She is. I mean, I don't know. I've only read Spear, so like it's. I'm judging off of one book, but she's very literary. She's very experimental.
Mm-hmm.
And like she's one of those authors where she's very, very intentional. And I'm absolutely certain there is so much I missed as part of Shakespeare. Because it's a Percival retelling.
Oh, interesting.
And I'm not really into like Arthurian stuff, so like I'm just like, okay, this is fine.
Have you read Warlord?
I have not.
Oh, Evie, gotta read Warlord.
I know.
I don't know if you'll like it, but you should read it anyway.
I've been told like not Jonathan Keeble.
Jonathan Keeble. Yeah, Keeble. Yeah, he's amazing. I have now with the new books my Warlord shelf right here.
Nice.
And
Nice.
I stare at it every day. I just look at Excalibur's cover specifically. I'm like, oh, you're just beautiful.
But yeah, like, and she's also like Matt, correct me if I am wrong, but I'm pretty sure she's a medievalist as well. So there's a lot of like cultural context that she's putting into the story as well. That like I'm assuming is historically accurate. And I'm just like, I don't get the reference, but okay, that's nice.
That's actually one of the things that I really love about Bernard Cornwell. Not that he is a medievalist or even a historian by that matter, but he does his research so well that you just feel so immersed in the time period and everything about it. Like very minor things to the point where he was detailing how different tribes that live not that far away from each other look different. And I was like, thank you. Like this is so important. Thank you so much. I freaking love Warlord. Oh, yes, Warlord is incredible.
KJ Parker. All of his books are basically fantasy Byzantine Empire. I know you don't like the Byzantine Empire.
Josh
And you
loves
hate
them
it.
though. So that's
Okay.
good to know. So you can tell me which one you think I should get Josh for Christmas.
If I don't say the folding knife, Alan will literally hire a hitman for me.
Yep. So the folding knife.
Um, my personal favorite of all of KJ Parker's works is the Engineer trilogy,
Okay.
starting with Devices and Desires. So if Josh is feeling a standalone, folding knife. If he's feeling a
Standalone,
series,
probably. Yeah.
Engineer. So
Okay. Remind me after our chat so I can write it down. Because otherwise, ADD brain was like, that's great information. And it is already starting to fade from my mind. Yeah, no. Oh, so good. I love that when, I mean, this is how I felt about Augustus too. Just John
I
Williams did
don't know
such
the
an incredible
like,
job.
you know all the context. Augustus is like your celebrity crush.
He is my celebrity crush. That is true. It really is Augustus. Yes.
I know no context other than Cleopatra and Mark Antony and
Yep.
Julius Caesar, like the zeitgeist popular culture
Yeah.
references of the time. And I was utterly
That book is incredible.
it's so good. And I had read Butcher's Crossing. John Williams, by the way, ruined Westerns for me because Butcher's Crossing is the best Western I've ever read, and it's an
There you go.
anti-Western. Stoner is fantastic. It is a sad book.
So
And I love
naturally,
sad
you
books.
love it. Yes.
And then Augustus happened, and I'm like,
Oh, it's so good. That's a
how
5-star
is
read,
this man able to write these 3 novels
right?
and make them all so it's all so distinctly him, but they're also distinct in themselves. It's just so
Yes.
good.
I had a personal just experience with Augustus. And I think in part it's because I am so attached to the time period and the figure of Augustus himself. Like if people are new here and don't know this about me, like Augustus is I did my graduate work like on Augustus and tangentially stuff related to Augustus. Like I love him very, very deeply. So that book I went into with reservations just based on the fact that historical fiction for me for the Roman period really tends to normally be a miss. Like there really aren't many hits. And I heard Alan just raving about this book. And I was thinking, okay, I'm gonna judge Alan pretty hard if this is not a good book. And lo and behold, it was a phenomenal book. I love it so much. It was one of my top 5 books last year and probably one of my top 10 books of all time. Like it's amazing.
Not to toot my own horn here, but to toot my own horn. Guess who got him that book and it got him to agree to read
I
it?
believe it. I believe it because as we've seen with Alan, sometimes he needs to be pushed to read the things that we want him to read. Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. I basically stopped watching a lot of television and stuff like that because, and this is, I think, part of my burnout too. I was literally only reading. Like that was the only activity I was starting to do. I stopped gaming. I stopped watching any television, any movies, anything like that. It was just reading. And I mean, that's fine. If that's what you want to do, like by all means do it. But for me, I felt like I was disconnecting from the other things that I generally really enjoy.
Yeah.
So I hear you.
I've been playing a lot of Dead Cells, so I get it.
Nice.
So Marianne, for you specifically, read Sarah Told Me. She is literary fantasy. She's akin to Nicola Griffith in that, like, she's a medievalist, and it's more like, I don't know, it's that, I don't know, Matt, help me out here, because Matt King and I literally, we butter read every single Sarah Told Me book together. She's just, she's so good. So my favorite of hers is The Stone Boatman, which is apparently, like, she took inspiration from, oh god, not Pilgrim's Progress. Oh god, what is it called?
I will not be of help with this.
Yeah, I can't. But she took inspiration from some medieval text that is very, very little known. and it's just really, really good. Like, I have a fox tattoo partially because of a character in that book.
Aw.
Um, and All the Horses of Iceland, if you want just like a taste of her storytelling, that shows you is a great example of her intentionality. Like,
Mhm.
it is a fictional travelogue of how the horses came to Iceland,
Hmm.
and there's like a light fantastical element to it, and it's
Hmm.
just people get so frustrated. They're like, "I thought this was gonna be a historical fantasy." It's a travelogue. It's like Marco Polo, but add some fantasy into it.
Sure.
So,
I
here's
mean,
Carmen. Thank you, Matt. Thank you.
yeah, I think that kind of story is fine. Again, it's all what you're in the mood for.
Yeah. Yeah.
It really is. Like, we were trying to convince someone about GGK the other day. We were talking to them about just how Lions of Alrasan hit Josh and I at the right time and just is like a phenomenal read. And I was saying, there's really not much fantasy in that book. You could read it and not really even know that it's there.
The same thing for KJ Parker. And again,
Mm,
they're both kind of writing, they're inspired by the same area or same era for the most part, Byzantine like society. Um oh, there you go.
there you go.
Um yeah, it's just I really need to get back to GGK. I need to give Sailing to Train Team another try.
I need to get back to him as well. I've been trying to debate as to what the next one I read will be because the two that I've read have been Lions of Alrasan and A Song for Arbonne, and I really enjoyed both of them. I enjoyed Lions substantially more than I liked Song for Arbonne. I was really the minority in the group that I read it with because I read it with Joanna and Josh from Red Cherry Books, both of whom love and connect to the music in that book so deeply. Whereas I was thinking like, this is fine, but I'm here for the plot.
I so I think the next GGK I'm gonna try is Under Heaven.
Okay,
So
it's a different
because
pick.
yeah, because apparently it's all like the inciting incident is that
Hmm.
this man gets a bunch of horses, like hundreds of horses, and
Well,
he
that's
builds his society
built
off
for
that.
you.
Right? Apparently the horses do not show up on the page. That is what Jake and Kyle have made sure they've set my expectations.
Hmm.
But just the premise.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I really don't know. I mean, Josh has been telling me that I really need to read uh Brightness Long Ago.
it's
And
it's very good. It's very,
yeah,
very
and
good.
he really loved the Sarantine Mosaic collectively. So I feel it'll probably be within that realm. I don't know if Josh is watching though, so I can't say the GGK books that I've gotten for him. Because I've already ordered Christmas gifts because I'm that person. I like getting it done well ahead of time. But there are a few on that list that I am excited to read as
Nice.
well, which is
I
nice.
mean,
You can
that
share
must
them.
be great to, Christmas gifts, but they're more like gifts
Shared.
for both of us.
Yes. That's the great thing if you have a partner who reads, if that is like a big thing for you, especially if you read similar genres. Like he isn't picking up Emily Henry or ACOTAR anytime soon. Specifically, when I asked him if he would read ACOTAR, he said when my TBR is done. And I was like, so never.
Josh, read Happy Place, for God's sakes.
I think he probably would. I don't know. I could see him getting irritated with parts of that book, specifically the miscommunication that happens in that book. But simultaneously, I could see him still appreciating the craft of the
Yeah.
book. So at some point, I am gonna push him to read Emily Henry because I want us to connect on that level of our mutual love of Emily Henry. I just want her to write a book like every week, so I constantly have a new thing to read. That would pull me out of my reading slump forever.
I mean, with the rate she's going, what Funny Story came out early this year, so hopefully, maybe, possibly something next year.
Well, the last 5 years, she's had a book out a year.
Yeah,
So, I mean, I know that's not sustainable for every author.
yeah.
I'm hoping it is sustainable for her for a lengthy period of time. And then by that point, I'll have the adaptations that I can fill in the blanks for the years that there aren't books.
And hopefully they are good adaptations.
I am praying for good adaptations. I have been I have felt very burned by adaptations in the last few years. So I am hoping, because she is writing the screenplays, that is what I have found. For the adaptations that I have really loved, the author has been directly involved with writing the screenplay and or has written the screenplay. So I'm like, I have faith. I have faith that this one will work for me. But we'll see. I hold my judgment until
Yeah, I'm not gonna try and get my expectations up too much. So.
No, and I'm not either. I know that there's already a few things that are going to be changed, specifically one of the locations and people we meet on vacation. So, I mean, yes, I would love if I love that adaptation. Hey, Joanna, I was just talking to you about you and how you love A Song for Arbonne so very, very much, which is delightful. I think she's also going to be reading more GGK soon. I could be wrong. Joanna, is that actually happening? I hope Esther Cold is good. I have not seen any news about it other than him saying he is taking a break from writing more first law books to work on adapting things, I believe. So I'm hoping that it means that has been worked on, but I don't know.
So that new book that is The Devils or whatever, is that the start of a new series or is that
Yes,
a standalone?
it is the start of a new trilogy, I believe. Yeah, she just started sailing for Sarantium. There you go. I'm glad you're enjoying it so far. That is very exciting. Do you think I would like that one, Joanna? Because I'm trying to figure out which GGK to read next. And we're not buddy reading this one, so I'm not on a schedule. Joanna always reads faster this stuff than I do usually.
So from everything that Jake and Kyle told me and other people, basically Sarantium Mosaic is one of those books that you should really read both of the books together.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
So
when are you reading this for, Joanna? I need a concrete date. Otherwise, as we know, I will fall behind. I need to try one that's not too common. Read Lions. Lions is so incredible. But if you do like music, then I would say A Song for Arbonne. Joanna has spoiler-free reviews for both of those if you want to check them out and see if either one of them might resonate with you.
Do you have an author that you are almost certain you would love, but are so scared to start?
Hobb.
Okay.
Yeah,
well,
Hobb, without question.
Well, mine is John Crowley.
Why are you holding off starting?
So he seems to be more literary in the fantastical sense.
Okay.
And also this is the expectation thing of Matt sent me this book. He's like, I think you'd really love it. And I'm like, oh God, what if I don't love it? I was really nervous. And I mean, John Crowley also seems very nice. I reached out to him on Facebook and I was like, hey, do you do signed copies or whatever? He's like, yeah, just, send me the books nice. And return postage. And I wound up sending, got Matt some signed books. So, because I know he loves, John Crowley's his favorite. John Crowley is your favorite author, right, Matt? Am I putting my foot in my mouth again this stream? Yeah, so John Crowley, I'm like, I know I'm going to love this book. I know I'm going to love it. I know I'm gonna like I know I'm gonna at least love his writing.
Right.
But I'm just like, what if I don't? I'm just so nervous.
See, I feel that way about Hobb in the sense that so many people just talk about her being this phenomenal character author, and that's right up my alley, but I am not emotionally ready for Hobb. And that's the thing. I don't know if I'm ever going to be emotionally ready for Hobb, but Josh is telling me now, he's like, I want you to read this before Christmas because if you like it, I'm going to get you more Realm of the Elderlings books. And I was like, well, that's putting a lot of pressure on me, so we'll see. I don't know if it's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, yes, I would attest to Hobb being a great character writer. Kind of going back to what I was saying with Glenn Cook is that this ability to write fully fledged, dynamic, compelling characters from the perspective of one single narrative character, that takes a special skill. And Robin Hobb is one of those that has that.
Right.
But my biggest thing, like, is that I fell in love with Fitz, and reading through his perspective is so cathartic for me. Again, sad books.
Mhm.
And I know this is irrational. I know it's irrational, and I recognize this, so at least it's a start. But I get so irrationally hurt and angry when people don't like Fitz because I'm like, if they don't like Fitz, they don't like me. So, and again, I recognize it's irrational.
The thing with me, and I don't know how other people are when they read, I am an immersive reader in that what I'm reading directly affects my mood. And like when I read Happy Place, I was in a funk for 2 weeks after I read it, just because I felt so. I'm an empath. Like I am such an emotional sponge for the people around me, and books like Happy Place, I get so emotionally invested in characters that I take on everything that they're feeling.
Yes.
And I felt the weight of that for a couple of weeks after I finished that book. And I'm worried that I will do this with Hob.
Yeah.
So, because it's just something I know about myself as a reader. I feel like, and it can be really wonderful because it can be such an escapist way for me where reading, I really do venture into another world, another reality. And I think, okay, this is wonderful. This is a break from the monotony of everyday life.
Yes.
But in other cases, when it's a really heavy subject matter and things like that, like I really struggle. Um, like I won't read anything related to the Second World War. I can't read it. I had family in camps and all that kind of stuff, and I'm like, I can't read this because for me, I'm there, and emotionally, like that's gonna affect me for probably months at a time, and will affect everyone around me because I will not be in a good state. And it can be really wonderful at times, and at other times, it's not very good.
Simon, you hate me then. You goddamn hate me. I don't know what else to say. This is supposed to be a love bomb, Simon.
Simon, the death of potential friendship is sad. Uh, yes, don't read Trader Cormorant. Yeah, no. I get that the idea of yeah, it does feel very weird to me. I mean I get it like to a point, but for me it's just not something that sits well with
Yeah.
me. But like my mom is a massive World War II buff, as is Josh. The both of them have read collectively probably every book that's ever been written on the Second World War. So for me, it's just not something that I'm ever going to say, you know what, I want to read. And I think that's part of why this year I tried to push myself just to read a few different things because I was getting so comfortable just within my genre. Like I also really love memoirs, but I haven't read a memoir in a few years. Um, Actually, that's not true. I read one last year. I read I'm Happy My Mom Died last year. But before that, I hadn't read one in a couple of years. A lot of people hate Fitz, but no one could hate Evie. No one could hate Evie. That is true.
I think the only memoir that I've read, um, that that I've read and actually liked to the point that I bought a physical copy,
Mhm.
because I usually listen to them on audio, is Carmen
Yeah.
Maria Machado's,
Hmm.
memoir, In Dream House. It is
Nice.
it is fantastic, but
Mhm.
that feels wrong to say,
I hear you.
'cause it's about domestic violence, so
Yeah, I almost exclusively will do memoirs either audio or from the library because it's one of those things that I super appreciate reading them, but then the likelihood of my reading it is practically zero. I just know that I'm not going to reread it. But I really loved a few years ago. I read Leah Remini's one that dealt with her and
Oh,
Scientology, which I
oh, yeah,
thought was
yeah.
so interesting. Also, just because like if there's religion involved in a memoir, chances are I'm gonna read it. I really, really loved that one. And I really loved a memoir that Golda Meir wrote. I took a course on women in Israel in university, and it dealt with all different groups of women. There were Bedouin, Islamic, Jewish, and Christian women. and we were assigned a memoir, and I was given Gold of My Year, and I actually found it very, very interesting. So those have probably been the ones that have stuck out the most. But the Leah Remini one, I really, really enjoyed. If you're interested in Scientology at all, people, 10 out of 10.
Oh, I didn't know Chess Story was a memoir.
Is it really?
I thought it was fiction.
I
Oh,
didn't
never
know.
mind. Oh, Stefan Zweig has a memoir. Sorry, I totally misread
Gotcha.
that. I thought you meant Chess Story was a memoir. I'm like, what?
Yeah. That's funny. Yeah, it's not.
Yeah.
So, what other than the infinite TBR that you have going on right now for September are you really excited to read? Like, is there a book that you've been holding off on or putting off that you're like, I know I'm gonna love this one, so I'm just waiting?
Other than John Crowley, actually have it. Where is it at? So, Joanna,
I love that, Derry.
hopefully, yeah, you're still here. To Ride Hell's Chasm by January.
Oh, so I really want to read that.
So Joanna actually sent me this book. She's like, "You're gonna love it. It's got horses in it."
I love that we are a book community sending each other books, adding to the TBR problem.
Yeah, and so I'm so nervous because I'm like, Joanna has great taste,
She
and
does.
she knows what I like and don't like. And I'm
Mhm.
like, oh God, what if I don't like this book?
Joanna, do you think Evie will like Warlord Chronicles? Because I'm leaning probably towards no, even though I still really want her to read it.
To be fair, I don't read a lot of books, obviously fiction set in like Dark Age
I
era.
don't either.
So
I don't either. So that's fair.
I mean, I say that, and then we gushed about Augustus for a bit. And I'm like, I don't know anything about that era.
Mhm. Yeah, Philip Chase recommended To Write Hell's Chasm to me, another book. Yeah, I got recommended it by John Minton from Talking Story. So I am curious to read it. Yeah. It's possible.
Fun, fun.
Warlord is battle heavy. I feel like Excalibur is battle heavy. I don't feel like Enemy of God and Winter King has a little bit, but Enemy of God is just so good. Oh, it's such a good book.
So I'm not really a visual reader in that I don't visualize like what's happening on the page. I'm more like my immersiveness is through like atmosphere, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah.
So if it's very like heavily descriptive, like Brandon Sanderson, he's very
Mhm.
heavily descriptive of
Yes.
what's going on around. I do not understand. And
Mhm.
I would say that's more than 50% of his storytelling and like the
Oh,
plot
yeah,
movement.
definitely.
So that's why it doesn't work for me. Like among other things, but we'll not get into that. This is a love bomb. So if Warlord is akin to that, where it's like
No,
mostly about like the visuals,
it's
then
not.
okay.
No, Warlord for me was really about the people. And I think that's why it resonated with me so much. Like, I will say, I think it is a highly atmospheric book in that it's just more so the setting in general, where you think like if you can picture England, basically, like you're there. And I think that kind of will set the right tone for you. But I loved the dynamic of interpersonal relationships and religion more than anything else in Warlord. I thought that that for me was probably the number one thing that stuck out. And I will say, like, I am someone that really loves Arthurian lore and mythology. And I thought that he did a wonderful job with his take on it. But the thing that I loved about it the most is that it's not from Arthur's perspective. It's from a friend of Arthur's perspective. You're still muted, Evie. um,
Sorry, Durful? Is it
Derval,
Durful?
yeah, which I love that name so very, very much.
Oh, is it
Derval.
Durful? I thought it was Durful this entire time.
So it is spelled Derfel, but it is pronounced Derval.
Oh, all right.
So yeah, it is. It's its own little thing. But I will say, I just think the relationships in that book more than anything else are what make it shine, and it's relationships of romantic nature, friendship nature, of parental to child, of mentor to mentee. Like there's just so many different dynamics of those relationships that I really think it is an outstanding read. 90 pages to start liking it. I usually give a book a good 50 to 100 pages to make my decision, and if it's not working, then that's when I reconsider. Depending on the length of the book. If it's a 200-page book, then maybe not so much, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, going back to Sailing to Serenitium, like, I know that that's a me problem. Like,
Mhm.
comparing, like, my DNF of Sailing to Serenitium and my DNF of my reread of Gardens of the Moon.
Mhm.
Gardens of the Moon, I know it's not for me, and I will never go back to it. I'm so sorry to any Malazan fans. Sailing to Serenitium, I know it was not the book that not the right time for me because it was a me problem. So,
Mm.
um, I like to think that I'm fairly, like, good at identifying when it is a me problem or when it's a book problem.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
I've been trying to be a little bit better about that, and I mean, one of the reasons I wanted to start the love bombs in general was because I know what I like and other people know what they like, and it's, we don't have to like the same things, but we can still talk to each other about those
Mhm.
things that we really like, and you will more often than not find that you share some sort of commonality within that grouping, even if it is a theme or an idea as opposed to an actual book or anything like that itself. But there have been a few cases for me this year where I've been like, okay, I think this might be me, and I think this might be a book, or it might be a combo of both.
Yep.
Tagana for me was a combo of both because I know people that really like Tagana, and a lot of other people that were like Tagana was a struggle for me to finish. So I'm like, hey, it could be both.
Yeah, it's like, it's weird. It's like reading and human experiences are, like, very individual and, yeah, you know?
Hmm. I don't think Evie's looking to interview Stephen Harrison.
Listen, again, shameless self-plug here. I can't get any better than my interview with Simon Jimenez, okay? I'm not
No.
looking for anything else. Why do you think I've been so radio silent on BookTube, other than my regular 6-month tier ranking videos and my random discussions?
I think that's fine.
I peaked, and I'm okay with that.
See, I feel like if I ever have the gumption to write Joe Abercrombie and say, "Please come talk to me," I will have that same reaction.
Apparently, I mean, apparently he does do
He
discussions
does,
with
he
interviews
does,
and stuff, so
and I want to reread First Law before I send that email, so I can have just that fresh with me, even though I would then still probably reread it again before talking to him. But, I would love to have a conversation with him, but I almost wish more so it wouldn't be like a public forum conversation. It would be like, "Hey, can I meet you in a cafe and pick your brain?" type thing for an hour. Like,
yeah.
that would be the type of conversation that I would really love to have, just because his sense of humor is very much my sense of humor, and I feel like we would do very well having a cup of coffee. I think it would be a good time. Talking about books in general is amazing. Exactly. I mean, Slay and I in general have very different tastes in books, and I love talking with Slay. It's always a good time. Teacher ever, she's content.
True, true. Listen, interview with Simon Jimenez, I finished Realm of the Elder Lanes, I finished Black Company, I now can say that, finishing Gormenghast, that's off my bucket list, like, you know, I don't want whatever universe thing to strike me down and be like, "Okay, well, you're done, so done." But,
Mhm.
I'm from a literature perspective, from a reading perspective, I am very content.
I hear you. I totally agree with this. And I know Sanderson is not everyone's cup of tea, but I actually really love the fact that Sanderson talks about other authors quite regularly. And he had a really interesting podcast discussion last year where he talked about his favorite living authors. Um, and GGK was his favorite. So I thought that, and I was actually really surprised by that answer. And I mean, I was very pleased by it because I think a lot of people probably didn't know who GGK was and maybe went and looked him up. But I do love when authors will talk about that because I think that too, now that I'm writing, it's been really interesting to see how the industry approaches authors who don't read within their genre. And basically, if you want to be successful as a first-time author, they're expecting you to be very well read within the genre. Hello, good to see you. Yes, I was not the only one surprised. I'm absolutely sure, because their writing styles could not be more different, but it works, which is fun. Who is your kitty? What is their name?
Her name is George.
Oh, yes, Georgie.
Yes. Oh. Okay, she's not happy about it.
No.
How dare you?
Evie knows this, and the people in my Discord know it. Hello, Gavin. I got a new cat yesterday. He has not made his booktube debut yet, but his name is Thackeray Binks, and he is the sweetest cat to have ever lived. He is just a boneless creature. He is 4.5 months of pure joy.
Did you get him from a rescue? Like,
yeah, we got him from a rescue. We got him from a rescue. Yes, Britton, it is connected to the Patreon. Josh lost his cat of 18 years this past December. And Murray, that you all see pretty regularly on here, is my lap cat. And Josh's cat was very much a lap cat. And he's taken time to reflect on whether or not he felt ready for another cat. And he was starting to feel ready. So I looked at a few rescues around specifically for cats that they mentioned were very affectionate and lap cats. And this cat, who was named Spidey initially, was listed as a Velcro cat. And I was like, this is what we need. And we went and we met him a couple of times, and he was just the sweetest creature, honestly. So I cried when we didn't leave with him the second time. I was like, we have to take this cat. He's chosen you twice. Like, I don't know what else this cat needs to do, but yeah, he is just delightful. So he is still in his little quarantine period from our other cats right now, because he was in a house with so many other cats. We're not sure if he's got a little stomach bug, so we're treating him for that. And then we will begin our introductions with other creatures, and it'll be interesting, as it always is when you introduce animals to each other. Any pet owner knows that.
It is taking us going on 9 years for our two cats to even tolerate each other.
Right. Well, were they each independently yours before you came together? Yeah.
And Aaron's cat, Leia, like literally the place where he got her from, they had a sign that said, "No other cats," in big, bold letters. Obviously, this was before we started, we met and started dating.
Mm-hmm.
And I have had my cat for, oh my God, she will be 14 in October. I've had her since she was 6-7 weeks old.
Night, Joanna.
I ain't giving up my cat for nothing.
No, heck no. Josh and I were like that.
I wouldn't expect him to give up his cat for anything.
We were the same. I had my boy at the time, Tibbs, who was my firstborn. I have a little T on my necklace for Tibbs. And he moved with me from Canada to the US, and Josh had two cats, Ty, which was our one we lost in December, and Callie, who was a menace. And Callie is the definition of someone that should have been an only cat. Like, she is the one that should have had the label on the cage saying no other cats. And we keep inundating her with more cats. Aww. But she stayed away from Tibbs, but Tibbs and Ty just formed a beautiful bond that lasted till the end of Tibbs's life. And then Ty basically mourned Tibbs until he passed, which was a thing. But they can come together sometimes in these situations. But other times, like Callie and Tibbs, it just was kind of like yours, was never going to be a thing. Never, ever, ever. And that's okay. They can be independent little creatures.
I mean, if I'm in the room, like they'll go up to each other. I've actually seen it happen. They'll go up and sniff each other, and then they'll like back away. But sometimes they'll like hiss at each other. Mm-hmm. I'm like, get out of there. But sometimes it'll be 2-3 o'clock in the morning. All of a sudden we'll hear,
yeah.
So, oh jeez.
We put ours in the basement so we can actually sleep. So we don't have to listen to it. I don't know what you're talking about, devil worship. All these cats, they're
yeah, Jay doesn't like cats. He's broken inside. But That was actually so my husband never had dogs before. I grew up with dogs, and my
Mm,
winning argument to get Max, who is right there,
the best boy.
um, I was like, "We can get a dog to police the cat." And now the dog does it too well because we can't even say one of the cat's names without him being like, "Something's happening, run!" So,
Mhm. That's so
yeah.
funny. Yeah, our we have one cat that I found in a sewer, and he is terrified of dogs. So he can never be around a dog because he was a stray that just I think had several bad run-ins with dogs. Yeah, I wish this was the case. But yeah,
That's
not
my
for us.
dog with kids. Like, he had a couple of traumatizing experiences with kids when he was a puppy, uh,
Mm,
and he just I I don't we don't
yeah,
know anyone that has kids, so that we couldn't do, like, exposure therapy to work him through that, and
sure.
he's 8 years old now, it's,
He's doing his best.
yeah. And thankfully, he's not aggressive, he barks, and he's just like, "Get away, little small human."
Right.
So,
Yeah. I mean, he's doing his own thing. That's kind of all you
yeah,
can anticipate at this point in his life,
so
which is fine.
he's
All
a good
right.
boy.
Tell the people where they can find you, Evie, when you post every 6 months.
So I didn't even put it on here. Whatever. So my channel, She Was Only Evie. Um, and I post at regularly every 6 months for tier ranking videos if you're into that. But otherwise, random discussions. I will bully my way into other people's discussions. Case in point,
Never.
the Happy Place Emily Henry book club.
We couldn't wait to
Um,
have you. It was the best.
and yeah, and I'm around on various discords, mainly Alan's. Um, yeah.
Tell people
And
what you want them if you could shout out one thing that you want people to pick up by the end of the year, what would that be?
so before I say that, for anyone that's going to be watching on replay, please put in the comments of what episode this shirt is from, please and thank you. But yes, so other than the Spear Cuts Through Water, because I know that's always going to be the
Other, of
answer.
course.
I would say it's a good question. I would say Mongrels by Stephen Graham Jones.
Okay.
So I don't
Heard
talk
it
about
here
Stephen
first,
Graham
guys.
Jones enough. Yeah.
Thank you all so much for joining us on your Saturday evening. I appreciate it. And as always, Evie, I love chatting with you. You are welcome here anytime you want. You never bully your way into anything. If you would like to help support the channel, you can always click like, subscribe, join the Patreon, all that fun stuff. We've got a fun little group of people in there. And tomorrow night, I will hopefully be done with the Grace of Kings. And you can catch our live for that, where we're also going to announce what our September book is going to be. And it's one that I'm super excited about, guys. So it's going to be great. Hope to see you all there. Just remember, always tell people what you're loving, and they might love it too. You'll make a new friend that day. All right, everybody, have a wonderful evening, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.